Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This Day in Sports History. Hey, and welcome to This Day in Sports History. It's May 3rd, and since the 150th running of the Kentucky Derby is tomorrow, let's go back and look at two previous runnings that ended with surprising results. On this day in 1980, it was the 106th running of the Derby. The field was pretty wide open, with Rock Hill native and Plug Nickel listed as the favorites. Hall of Fame jockey Eddie Arcaro was doing commentary for ABC prior to the race, and his prediction was that those two were not mile-and-a-quarter horses. They'd start fast, lead for a bit, and then they'd back up to the field, opening the door for a horse to come from the back. In the field that day was a filly named Genuine Risk, and in her previous races against colts, she had not performed well. Her owners were a little hesitant to even put her in the field. The horse's trainer, Leroy Jolly, was even less impressed, saying emphatically Genuine Risk would not run the Derby. Only one filly had ever won the Derby, and that had been in 1915. In fact, a filly had not even run the race in 31 years. But despite all of that, here she was. Jockey Jacinto Vasquez may have been the only one that really thought she could win on this day, and he was a former Derby winner. At 13-1, Genuine Risk wasn't the longest of long shots, but she wasn't among the favorites either. After a good start, Jacinto moved her into the tail end of a 7-horse pack, and as they moved their way around the final turn, Genuine Risk made a move around the outside and moved into the front, and held off a hard-charging Rumbo to win by a length in a rather slow 2 minutes 2 seconds. Couple of interesting things. The third-place horse that day was Jacqueline Klugman, a horse owned by actor Jack Klugman, well known for his role as Oscar Madison in The Odd Couple. Also, Dan Fogelberg's song Run for the Roses was commissioned by ABC, and it made its debut for this 1980 edition. Since Genuine Risk's win, only one other filly has won at Churchill Downs. In 1986, it was an even longer 17-1 long shot that raced its way to the win. On this day, it was Ferdinand who shocked the horse racing world, and who better to pull off a shocking win than Bill Shoemaker. The cagey veteran jockey broke from the gate dead last, but he moved Ferdinand up the outside and steadily into the field. By the time they made the break down the backstretch, Shoemaker had his horse on the rail, and then he broke away to win by 2 lengths. For Shoemaker, it was his 4th Derby win, and at 54, he became the oldest to win it, a record that still stands. For Ferdinand's 73-year-old winner, Charlie Whittingham, it was his first ever Derby winner, and he hadn't even had a horse at Churchill Downs in the previous 26 years. All right, so that gives you a little to talk about at your local Derby party tomorrow to make it sound like you've been watching horse racing all of your life. So, from horse racing to golf we go. On this day in 1964, golfer Pete Brown became the first black golfer to ever win a PGA Tour event when he won the Waco Turner Open in Oklahoma by a shot over Dan Sykes. As one of the few black golfers trying to make it on the PGA Tour, Pete suffered a lot of harassment, but he managed to deflect it with an attitude of just laugh at him and keep moving. Brown became the first black player to play in the PGA Championship later that year, making the cut and finishing 33rd. He won once more in his 17-year PGA career, that victory coming in 1970 in the Andy Williams Invitational. But he never got an invite to play in the Masters. Also on this day in 1970, the Jack Nicklaus-Arnold Palmer rivalry was on display in the Byron Nelson Classic. Tied after 72 holes, the two went to a sudden death playoff. On the first extra hole, Nicklaus was able to reach the 555-yard par 5 in 2 and then 2-putt for birdie. The 40-year-old Palmer knew Jack had the length to get to the green in 2, and he tried to duplicate it, hitting driver-driver, but he came up a little bit short, hit a bad pitch, and had to watch as the Golden Bear rolled in his tournament-winning birdie putt. It was Nicklaus's 29th career title of the 73 he would eventually win. And in 1936, Joe DiMaggio made his major league debut with the New York Yankees in impressive fashion. He had 3 hits, including a triple, an RBI, and he scored 3 times. He was not Joltin' Joe just yet, but he was on his way. And time now for today's non-sports Did You Know? On January 15, 1972, Loma, Montana saw the largest one-day temperature swing in U.S. history, going from -54 to 49. That's a swing of 103 degrees. So, you know what would be just as dramatic a swing? Going from, no way do I have time to rate this podcast 5 stars and leave a comment, to, I'm really enjoying this daily podcast. I should express my appreciation with a 5-star review and a comment on Apple Podcasts. You know, from frosty to fabulous in less than 60 seconds. Anyway, thanks for stopping by today and giving this a listen, and I'll have more tomorrow on This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.